don't know. I'm looking, yeah.
Wow. Marc Clarke, that's classic. I love it.
Well. Bootsy Vegas. What is going on, superstar? What's going on, superstar?
Superstar? Is that what you're referring to me as today?
Superstar Bootsy Vegas.
Oh, wow. Sound like the check must be coming soon. How you doing, Mark?
Superstar Bootsy Vegas. Now, Bootsy, way before you knew me.
I knew
those
you before
parody
I knew
songs.
Let me say this. I knew you before I knew you, but go ahead, though.
Way before you knew me and those parody songs. I was in St. Louis with a legendary DJ. And he was there when we started crafting songs like this. When St. Louis wanted a team, Bootsy, before they had a team. They lost the Cardinals, but they wanted a team so bad. Bootsy, I'm going to take you back to my infancy.
Oh, wow.
Of parody songs.
Oh.
Murray keeps on messing up our dream. We just want our own pro football team. Cranky has the cash, so let's get paid.
Yes, that was it, Bootsy. I know it's painful. That was it. But the show was much better. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, one of my best friends forever, my brother from another mother, turntable brother. He's been rocking the mic for years. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the best that ever do it. The Tony Scott joins us. Tony Scott, how you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Make some noise.
Yesterday's price is not today's price. Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Well, all right, man.
Tony is in the building. Tony, do you still have all those sound effects we used to use back in the day? You still have those?
I have somewhere, but I don't know where they are.
You don't roll them out anymore, man?
I really don't know where they are. They're probably on like a zip drive or a jazz drive that, I don't even have connections for anymore because everything is USB. Back then it was a little different, but no, I got them, but I just don't know where they are.
I listened to this talk show, Ben Maurer, and they have, so Bootsy, you did mornings too. You got to have that bank of sounds. And so it's just funny hearing people, I miss them, man. They had the one, you lose, sir. Those ones we used back in the day, Tony. He's still keeping them alive. But for those who don't know, this is a radio nerd episode.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, so we had a music nerd episode, Tony. So again, this drops and rolls for a week. So people, if you miss this, you can see it time and time again, or you can ignore it time and time again. Every time you see it, you ignore it. Oh my God, again. But Bootsy is a radio nerd. Tony is definitely a radio nerd, and I'm a radio nerd.
And Tony, let me say this. It is nice to virtually meet you, man. I've been a fan. I've heard so much about you. It is nice to finally virtually meet you, my brother.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's nice of you to say that, man. I mean, I've loved all your years, man. I've loved your music, man. The Wind Me Up, Baby Bubba, and all that stuff. I love that stuff, man, from back in the day.
See what you're getting, Bootsy? This is what you get. The old Sarcastic Tony Scott.
Hey, it's crazy for Chris. I'm like, oh wow, he knows me. Like he knows who I am. Oh wow. Okay.
So it was a setup.
It was,
man.
I'm sorry, man.
Tony, now are you in a studio? Are you in a closet, or is it one and the same?
It's one and the same, man. We moved to this townhouse in Chesterfield, Missouri, and it had a walk-in closet, and so I converted it into a studio, and it has lots of sound treatment in it. I need to redo a couple, so I'm thinking about doing that. But this is where I do when I have to do my radio show from home for whatever reason. I do it like when I had COVID, I had to do it from here, so I did it from here. And then I do a lot of voice work. I do all my voice work from here. So
yeah, I can tell you do voice work. You know what I mean? And let me say this: you're nothing like Mark said you was going to be already. I just want you to know that you're nothing like he said you were going to be.
Well,
how did he say I was going to be?
Oh, he said you was going to be difficult. You wasn't going to pay attention to the camera. You wasn't going to be in a nice mood, and that maybe the interview will be 15 to 20 minutes tops if he was in a good mood. But I can already tell the vibe between me and you telling you gonna be all right.
See,
and Tony, what he just said was a lie. So
I know that because Mark and I have a different relationship, man. We know each other very well, and when we used to work together, we knew what the other one was going to say or do without having to say anything. So we have a whole different kind of vibe that it's just different, and we still have it to this day. In my fantasy world, we would do another show together, but it's been so long that I don't know if we could afford them.
Right,
that's true. You know what I mean? Because what
you obviously didn't see my check I just got from my new job.
When they start getting that TV money, Tony, they don't never come back to radio. Once once they start being seen every day and not listened to, something changes. So I hate to say it.
I don't know. But they say when you first get in radio, they say that you get in radio, you work a lot of hours, you don't make any money. But if you stay with it, you'll work fewer hours and you'll make a lot of money. But what they don't tell you is it cycles back way to the beginning again. It goes back around, man. So
oh wow.
But it's a nice career. And mine, I just June 30th was my 40th year doing radio.
Damn it, man. Wow.
Yeah, 40 years.
That's a blessing though, Mark. You know what I mean? And it's interesting because even though I never even I've never got to meet you, I've always known who you were. I've known what your work has been. And it's interesting that your voice still sounds vibrant and young, probably as you did. Like no matter, some people's voices winger off. When did you start realizing that you had a different voice though? Like I was, I don't know if I'm supposed to start the interview, but I would love to know because some people always don't pick up on the fact that they have a good voice. And just from hearing your voice, I would love to know when did somebody start coming to you saying, man, you might want to do radio with this voice.
And Tony, and before you answer, Tony, I just want to add the background. So here's Tony, Galveston, Texas, basically Hispanic community, really, with this voice. So yeah, Tony, well, how did this happen?
You know what? I have been intrigued with theater of the mind, being able to paint a picture with words, being able to be a storyteller since I was a little kid. But when I was a little kid, I stuttered. And so I didn't really think that I could, ever do anything in radio. And then I was working in the automotive center at Sears in Galveston. I knew for a while they've been running this commercials on TV for Columbia School of Broadcasting. And 629-1711 was the phone number. I still remember that. And
wow.
And I'm also painfully shy. And so when one day I just closed my eyes and I called that number and I booked an appointment and I drove to Houston from Galveston, which was about an hour, and I got lost and I couldn't find it. And I actually cried because I didn't think that I was ever going to get that opportunity again. Right. So, I manned up and I called them again when I got back to Galveston, and they said, no problem. Let's, come in next Saturday. So I went up there next Saturday, and they broke it down for me that the class could take anywhere from 9 months to a year and a half. And I enrolled, and I paid for it myself, and I finished it in 9 months. And I got my first radio job in Wharton, Texas. And I never thought anything about my voice ever.
Hold on, Tony. Hold on, Tony. Hold on. Now we're going in now. So Tony, because Tony's the dearest friend, and we never really talked about this, Tony. So you're actually, most people think you're black, but you're Hispanic, and going into that culture. So you grow up in a household where your grandparents and your parents speak Spanish, really, but you're a generation that they were like, well, they didn't necessarily want you to speak it. They wanted you to, to speak the language of America in a sense. So you grow up you're hearing a different sounds and different perspectives. That's one aspect of you. Then you talk about culture, Hispanic culture. And I think the thing that was interesting, I think a lot of guys like Tony over the years, Bootsy, I think, Tony's kind of like the man's man thing. And I think probably a part of that is the culture, the Hispanic culture. And Tony's dad, who even had a character, was almost like a living, breathing machismo in a sense. So the emotional piece, little distant and emotional, not really expressive. And so inside that, all that going on, Tony, like you just said, you got lost and you started crying. So did you think that, and we talked about this side, that you could get lost in the sauce of kind of a, regular life, maybe be a mechanic, not necessarily break out? Was it like fantasy almost to think of being a radio guy or getting out, in a sense, using your talent to get out? Was that almost a fantasy thing? And what fueled it? What made you say, you know what, I'm gonna go for it?
It was a dream. It was a pipe dream. I was told in high school that I needed to learn a trade because, I wasn't going to have a career that was intellectual or professional by any stretch of the imagination, and I saw that as a challenge. And I saw a lot of my friends, got married when they were 15, 16 years old because they got a girl in trouble. And so they had to get married. And, growing up, I had a first cousin who was like a brother to me. And he got married at 15. He was a grandfather at 31. And when he died at 52, he was a great-grandfather. And I knew, and all that was going on around where I grew up in Galveston. And I didn't want that, right? I didn't want that for myself. And my mother used to tell me and my sisters, when y'all finish high school, y'all need to get out of here. There's nothing in Galveston for you. Y'all need to go make a life somewhere else. You need to find something else besides staying. Don't stay here. You'll be working 2 jobs all your life. And I remember when I was out of high school, I wanted to go work with my father at Todd Shipyard. And my father told me, you need to figure out something else because you ain't working with me. He goes, I ain't working my ass off 12 hours a day, so you come over here and work with me. He goes, so figure something else out. So, like I said, I closed my eyes and I called this broadcast school. And I did that. And my father didn't understand radio to the degree that I'm not going to say he didn't accept it, but he just always wondered. He used to tell my sister, when is he going to get a real job? When he's going to grow out of this phase and get a real job, not knowing, that this was my career. And so you fast forward many, many, many years later. And I used to have a house here in St. Louis. It was like 4,000 square feet. It was a beautiful home. And my dad came, and he was in my basement and he was like tapping the pipes with his cane. And he was like, whose house is this? I said, this is my house. He goes, this is your house. Get out of here. Whose house is this? I said, this is my house. He said, would you rent it? I said, no. I said, I bought this house. And he was like, he said, how the hell you afford a house like this? I said, Dad, I said, look, I'm very good at what I do, and they pay me because I'm good at what I do. And he looked at me and he was like, that's bullshit. This ain't your house. And I said, all right, it is my house, but go ahead and think what you want to think. But going back to the voice thing, I never thought my voice was anything special at all. When I was working in Dallas, I spent 26 years working in St. Louis, and then I got laid off. And it was hard. It was tough. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And 2 years later, about 2 years later, I got a job in Dallas. So I'm working in Dallas, and I'm doing. They asked me, "Can you do a commercial for us?" And I said, "Yeah, no problem." So I went in there, and the way it was set up, you stood in front of the mic and read, but the production director, he was the one running the board and getting the levels right. So I did it, and he says, "Voiceover work," and I said, "No." He says, "Why not?" And I looked at him. I says, "You know what? I don't know." So, and I never forgot that. And then fast forward a couple of years later, I got laid off again from that radio station. And I started driving Uber Eats, delivering food. And I gave myself some hernias from climbing stairs and all that, because I'm not in any kind of shape, right? So I got hernias, so I couldn't do Uber Eats anymore. So I was thinking, what can I do utilizing my skill set that I can make some money with? And then I remembered, JV telling me, why don't you do voiceover? So then I started noticing people were saying, "Man, that voice is money." And I was like, so I started doing voiceover work. But what I've learned is that there's a difference between voiceover work and radio commercial production. There's a huge difference, right? In radio,
can you elaborate on that, please, if possible? Because I would love to know.
Huh?
Can you elaborate on that? Because I actually don't know.
Yeah, well, in radio is like a mash unit as far as commercial production. It's like triage. It's like you get spots, you crank them out. You just do them and crank them out, throw a music bed under it and keep it moving, make it sound, and with voiceover work, you actually have to interpret the script. You have to finesse it and caress it and make it like, you have to make it to where the client says, "This is good. I like this." The thing in voiceover right now is a commercial, is the conversational delivery.
Okay.
So now I got to take a class to beat the radio out of my voice so I can sound more conversational, right?
And Tony, we have Bootsy. We have a little sample to give you an idea. So Tony actually is the voice of Nutty History on YouTube.
Yeah.
And like Tony said, this is a theory about you that I have. Tony didn't go to college. And to me, much like entrepreneurs, they know what they know, and to me, they master then what they know. Tony's not one to, I think college can, in a sense, opens you up to different ways of thinking. And I think especially early on, Tony was kind of like, again, I know what I know, and I don't know if I'm interested in that. That was our conversation about computers before Tony figured out he was a computer guy, and that's a passion. And now what I think is funny is Tony has been on me about this voiceover stuff for years.
Yeah.
And I've yet to really hop in, Bootsy. But as we know, I saw Tony start at the very beginning and just keep grinding and keep grinding and keep grinding. Next thing you know, he's on this Nutty History, which has hundreds of thousands of people views, and Tony's voice, he's killing it. And we had a chance to hear him, always with this great voice, like Tony said, this amazing voice, but now a more nuanced voice. So this is Tony. This is a sample of Nutty History.
Time. From Menes to Cleopatra, pharaohs lived a lavish life and were treated like gods. They dined on the finest.
Oh, sorry about that. What happened, Tony?
I don't know.
Food and bathed in milk and honey. Thousands of workers were employed to construct their tombs, and they executed authority like no one before them. Naturally, some of them got carried away a bit too much. Welcome to Nutty History, and today we are looking at the weird things that were normal for Egyptian pharaohs.
Them pipes, baby. So Bootsy, Tony, Bootsy is the questioner. So sit back. He's about to hit you with some questions.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, first things first, I would love to know, did you have a idol or somebody that I don't want to say idolized, but somebody that you respected and you listened to the most in voiceovers?
You know what? Not really. There's a lot of people that I admire. The interesting thing is that there's a guy, a brother named Dave Fenoy, and Dave Fenoy is one of the top voice actors in the business. He was a voice of Lee Merritt for some video game, and he used to, when Hulu started, he was the voice you would hear when he first signed on and all the stuff like this, right? And so I was watching him on YouTube one time, and he was talking about his career, and he says, I used to work in San Francisco in radio at a station named called KRE, and I was like, I worked at KRE. So I started listening to him, and I was like, that's Billy David Ocean. That's who that is, right? And then about like 10 seconds later, he says, I had a different name back then. I was Billy David Ocean. And I was like, look at this dude here, right? So, you know, but I enjoy his work. Joe Cipriano, you know his voice if you heard him. He's like the comedy voice of Fox and stuff, you know, for when they do TV promos for The Simpsons and stuff like that. So it's a lot of, I like, there's a brother named Donovan Cornetz, Rick Party, Mark knows, is a legend in radio and voice work. So those people I listen to. As far as radio goes, I liked, who did I like? I liked John London. I liked, man, been so long since I heard anybody. It's so funny because back, you know, it's been so many years, but people, I used to, when I had my first radio job in Wharton, which was about 60 miles from Houston, I used to sit at night and I used to listen to Magic 102, and I used to write down their breaks. I used to write, and I trained myself to be able to remember long form, that back then I couldn't do it now, long form dialogue. And I would write down what they said, and then I would practice it. I would mimic it. And I was working in radio, but I was at my first radio job. I was making $700 a month. And I was, you know, my apartment was 175, and I didn't know I was sharing it when I moved in, but it turns out I was sharing the apartment with about 5 rats.
Oh shit.
Were they paying rent?
No, they weren't paying rent, man. So I remember I went to the grocery store and got some big ass mouse traps. They were like really big, and I set them up, and I'm laying in bed, and all of a sudden I hear clack, 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 like, right? And it's these rat traps going off that I killed like 4 of them in a span of like 15 seconds. Pow, 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 right? And I was like, you know what? I got to get out of here. So I moved to another apartment that was much better. And then from there, I went to Houston, and I worked there for a while. And then I went to San Francisco, and then I went to Detroit, and then I went to St. Louis for 26 years. And then I went to Dallas, and then I came back to St. Louis last November. Although I was doing St. Louis from Dallas because of COVID. And finally, they were able to get me back to St. Louis, and I've been living here since November. So
wow, I would love to know for the listener who do not know that much about voiceover, or even a radio guy or whatever. How long would it normally customarily take for you to pop to where you can sustain yourself making a living doing voiceovers?
A long time, because like right now, I mean, I've been doing it for a few years, but really have zoned in on it maybe the last 2.5 years. But it's hard because you got, like I said, you have to interpret the script. And there's so many genres. There's commercial voiceover, there's narration, which is like what that Nutty History is. Then there's corporate narration, and then there's e-learning, and then there's IVR. IVR basically is voicemail. Press 4 for Marc Clarke, that kind of stuff. And so there are different, and then there's audiobooks, and I've done 2 audiobooks, but that's not really my thing because, I did, it was like 18 chapters. It took me almost forever to do it, and I only made like $180.
What? For a whole book?
Now there are people who do audiobooks who are on a certain level where they get their work through literary agents and stuff like that. Now these guys are they make a huge amount of money, and they also sometimes you can work out a deal where you'll get royalties based on the sales of the audiobook.
Wow.
But that's just not my thing. So I'm interested in doing like radio imaging. And so I'm thinking about taking this class. I'm not quite sure yet because I'm at a point now where I hate spending money because I know when I spend it, something's going to happen. I'm going to need it for something else. And then, you know, my wife would have to work the pole on the weekends to get that money back. And it's like,
so guys, you know, so since this is the nerd show, and Tony, I meant to been meaning to send this. I've been talking to you about this forever. You a little bit, Bootsy, but this to me is the gold standard of narration. So you know the actor Will Patton. You guys know Will Patton.
Yeah.
You know Will Patton. You know what I'm talking about, Tony? Bootsy. Yeah. He was in you know what I'm talking about. He was in the movie about the football coach here in the DC area, the famed football coach. The football movie with Denzel in it.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
He played the opposing coach.
Remember the Titans.
And so he is the main voice guy for this author, James Lee Burke, who's now in his mid or late 80s. He's one of those old school great writers. And so you got a writer who's so descriptive and just paints, you know, he's the kind of person you listen to his book and he's going to hit you with some history. He's going to hit you with the background on stuff, you know, so the writing's amazing. And then Will Patton as the narrator, it's like, to me, this is one of the best combinations that's out there. And so finally I get a chance to play for you, Tony. This was the Tin Roof Blowdown. This is based in, and basically the character Dave Robichaux, he's from Louisiana. This was right around Katrina, like the fallout from Katrina, story taking place where New Orleans is a mess and different sides of towns are going on. And again, I just want to play a little sample just to let you know, for those who, again, are watching, want to be a narrator. To me, Will Patton, the way he handles this book and the combination is amazing.
Prostate biopsy can result in so much damage to a person's life. Most people don't even understand the terminology. Plus, he does not wish to rob others of their faith in the exactitude of medical science. To do so is, in a way, the same as robbing them of the only belief system they have. The Gleason scale had indicated that the cancer had not spread outside the prostate. As a consequence, the surgeon had elected not to take out the erectile nerve. The positive margins left behind went into the lymph nodes and the seminal vessels. Natalia flattens herself against him, pressing her loins tightly into his back, and he feels desires stirring in him that he tries not to recognize. Perhaps.
Okay, that's enough, gentlemen. Don't get you worked up. No, but the writing and just the way he breaks it down is like, and then he does multiple characters. So like I said, Tony, it's really like you are an actor.
Yeah, it's a voice. Call it voice acting. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why you can't fake it. I think so. That's the main thing. You can't fake. As Tony knows, I will take a shortcut and try to fake. You can't fake it. You got to put the work in, right?
Yeah, you do have to put the work in. And if I know you guys probably watch Dateline on NBC, and there's a guy named Keith Morrison. And if you ever are driving for a long distance, pull up a Dateline podcast that he's narrating, and he's like next level. He's like next level. He's like Will Patton. He's on a whole nother level. But he's narrating. He's not telling the story like Will is, but he is working some magic that pulls you in, and it's incredible. And you know, he's somebody to aspire to. But there's a lot of great talent out there. Anybody can do voiceover now. You don't have to have this voice anymore. You just have to be able to relate. And but you're going to need a lot of coaching, and you're going to need, because a lot of times people get in voiceover and they think, well, I have to hit every word. Like, I'm becoming the next generational star. It's not, you just talk like you talk, right? And it's not becoming, it's becoming, it's becoming a pain in the butt, right? Not becoming a pain. Nobody says becoming a pain in the butt. And it's kind of like in radio for a while, because in radio, we have a guy that does news for us at the station, and he's never done radio before. And he'll do the weather, and he'll say, 30% chance of precipitation. And I pulled him to the side. I said, dude, nobody says precipitation, man. I said, just say rain. I said, and you don't need to say low's going to be 38 degrees. Just say low 38. People know what you're talking about, man. I said, this is a conversation you're having with the listeners. You don't have to hit every word like that. I said, just relax, slow down, and just have a conversation with the listener about what you have in front of you on the copy. That's all you want to do. I said, but it's not going to happen in a day, and it's not going to happen in a month. May not happen in a year unless you work really hard at it. You have to work very hard at doing it. And I remember you know, when I went to Dallas, the guy that owned the station, because he only owned it, he's a rarity because, you know, corporations own radio stations. This man owned 2 radio stations in Dallas. And he told me that, you know, I heard you're a great storyteller. This is when I came for the interview. He said, I heard you're a great storyteller. And so we talked and all that. And he says, you know, you're right. They're right. You are a great story. And I remember I called a friend of mine, Doc Winter, and I said, they told me I'm a great storyteller. And he says, you are a great storyteller. You didn't know that? I'm like, no. He goes, oh man, yeah, you're a great. He said, you're one of the best storytellers I ever heard. I said, I never thought about it like that. I'm just telling you what I know. And he was like, no, you have a way of doing that. And the point you made earlier about my voice, Chuck Atkins, who's the guy who hired me in St. Louis, and he hired Mark in St. Louis, and he hired Doc Winter in St. Louis.
Yeah.
He told me about 2 years ago, because his daughter got married in Dallas and I was living in Dallas. So I went to the wedding, and he says, your voice has never aged. He said, it's never, and it's probably because you use it. You use it as to how you make your living, using your voice, and you've kept it in shape. You know, he goes, your voice hasn't aged at all. And I was like, you sound the same as when I hired you in 1989.
Damn it, man.
So I was like, okay, well, you know, I guess I'm lucky that way. But the voiceover thing has been such a challenge, and I love challenges. And, you know, I do, you're going to, in voiceover, you have to accept the fact that you're going to do way more auditions than you're going to book gigs. Right. And you're not going to get everything. And you're not, and it's like golf. You know, in golf, you're not competing against Tiger Woods. You're competing against the course, because there's nothing Tiger Woods can do to interfere with your play. You're playing you're not playing Tiger Woods. Y'all may be playing together, but you're not playing against him, because he's not, there's no offense and defense. Right. And in voiceover, I'm not competing with Bootsy. I'm not competing with Mark. My thing is, it's a matter of what the client hears in their mind, what the sound they're going for. So you may get a gig that I was auditioning for, that we both auditioned for, based because they like your sound. And there's nothing, I can't compete with that. I can just do my best, and hopefully, you know, somebody will want my sound. So it's basically, it's not really competitive, and there's a lot of work out there for everybody.
Well, I would love to know, just as a radio vet, you know, who's been in these multiple markets, what is the state of Black radio in your opinion?
Black radio has been wounded by syndication. Their Black radio has been hurt by syndication more than any other format, right? And so the consequence of that is that there's not a lot of broadcasters anymore. There's just people on the radio. And, you know, and it's not a criticism and it's not hate, because who would turn down an opportunity to be heard in multiple markets for a it's hurt Black radio more than any other format, because you think about it like this, and this is not shade. Like when Tom Joyner was on, at one time, Tom was in like 160 markets. Now every morning show averages about 3 people. Sometimes 2, sometimes 4 or more, but usually the sweet spot's about 3 when you count the co-host and the news person. It's usually around 3. Now, what's 3 times 160? That's like it's like 100 or something, or, you know. So that's how many people lost their jobs because they put Tom Joyner on. And it's not Tom's fault by any stretch. Like I said, who would turn that down, right? But then you factor in Steve Harvey, you factor in Ricky, you factor in Russ, you factor in all these syndicated morning shows, you know, and how many jobs are we talking now? You know, we're talking a lot of people lost their jobs, right? And that's just Black radio, right? And so there's a lot of people who are out of work because, and they're talented people, but there's nowhere to put them. I don't know why God blessed me with St. Louis. You know, Mark used to tell me a long time ago, you should have been gone from St. Louis, man. Why are you still there, right? Because when I worked at the last place I spent all the years at in St. Louis, they didn't exactly treat me right. They paid me really well, but they treated me like trash, right? But, you know, but that's another story. But the point is that, you know, I've been blessed enough where I've been able to have a career mostly in St. Louis, where for whatever reason, St. Louis and I, we connected. And, and so, you know, the station I work at now, I have no restrictions. You know, if I want to do a 10-minute break, I can do a 10-minute break. I won't do a 10-minute break because that's not in the best interest of the radio station. And I get that. So now, you know, my breaks are fairly short, and, you know, and I wrap it around, you know, the music that they have for me to play. And, but I've been able to do that. And, you know, when I was in Dallas, you know, they came to me and they said, you know, we won't put you on weekends. And I said, okay. And then COVID hit, and they were laying people off. And I remember being told, we need you to do afternoons moving forward every day. And so I did. And, you know, in a month, we went from 15th to like 3rd, and I was making $11 an hour. Right. So
wow.
That was a couple months. And then the general manager at the time, Nate Dixon, he says, I want to give you a deal, man. He goes, enough of the hourly thing. He goes, you've proved yourself. He goes, I don't know why we had to, you know, wait for you. Because when I first started doing weekends, they were like, you know, ratings came out and they were like, maybe that's a fluke because he's back. Let's see if he can sustain that. And so for 4 months, the numbers kept going up, and they were going up like a lot. And they were like, this is insane, right? And it was like, you know, but it's me. These people, for some reason, I resonate with them, and so they're very loyal to me, and I don't take that for granted. I did for a long time back in my younger days, Lewis. But now, you know, I cherish every moment, and you know, it's like yesterday, we got a new cleaning company that's gonna, you know, custodial company that's coming in to clean the place, and they're walking around looking, and they looked at my studio, and I was, you know. And so I got up and I walked. I opened the door. I said, what y'all want, man? And they looked at me. I said, I'm just messing with y'all. I said, come on in, man. Come on in. And Mark will tell you, I didn't like anybody in my studio when we were on the air.
Wow.
I would not didn't want people in my studio, only the people who were on the show, right? And so we had a 10-minute conversation, and they told us what they were, you know, they told me what they were doing, and you know, they knew who I was, and I showed them the board, the control board, and everything, and you know, and so the lady was there today cleaning up, and she saw me, and she says, I said, Tiffany, right? She goes, yes, sir, Mr. Scott. I'm like, nah, we're not gonna do that. I said, just Tony's fine, right? And she looked at me, she goes, okay, Tony, you know, but I learned over the years, and actually, to be honest, I learned that from that man right there,
Mark.
Yeah, that man is so personable in public, and he has a way of disarming people. And so, to be quite honest, I just bit off of that and just, you know, molded it to fit my style, because
he's a good guy to follow, Tony.
Yeah, you know, and when we worked together, you know, he would, during the week, now we went on there at 5:30, and he would knowing that he'd be out, and he'd go and sit in a club with his saxophone or his guitar, sit in with a band, and knowing he had to be working 5:30. But that's what. So, and I stayed home and just worked on the show. I came up with the topics. I came up with all this, but it was a good trade-off because I didn't like doing that. I didn't like that, right? So he did it, and so we had a good little working thing. I'd work on the show, he would work on the PR, and we were gold, right? So it worked perfect for us because he likes being out, and I didn't really care for it, you know. I would rather go to an event like a while back for Easter. There was an Easter egg hunt in Delwood, one of the suburbs, mostly black suburb, and I like going to those because that's when I can really meet my listeners, right? And so I'm there, and this man, you know, I'm talking to this man, and he said, man, he goes, I didn't know you do stuff like this, man. I'd have paid you to come to do our Easter egg hunt. And I said, well, where is it? He's just over in Hanley Hills. And I said, well, what time does it start? And he says about 12, and it's like, you know, 10:45. And I said, I'll come by. I said, just give me directions, and I'll be happy to come by. And he says, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, man. I said, I'll come. So I went by, but I always tell myself, you have to push yourself, Tony. You have to get out of your comfort zone, because when they pay us, we haven't done them since COVID, but at one time they would pay us like $200 an hour to be at a beauty supply store for 2 hours, right? And I would go to these things, but on the way there, I'd have to talk myself into doing it because I'm just that shy. Where I just, you know, when I'm not working, I just want to be left alone, right? So I have to put. And for many times, I would in my car, and I never told him this before.
No, you did not.
I would tell myself, well, how would Mark do this? Right? Mark would go out there and be happy and show people that I'm a great guy and all that. I said, well, I can do that. So I would go and I would do it. And when it was over, I didn't regret doing it. Right. But I learned that from him.
Well, I never knew this. This is a new bar. Who knew?
Wow.
Mark mellowed me out. Right. Mark mellowed me out. Mark made me realize that being a machismo male was booty. You know, it didn't do anything. It didn't do anything. He's the one who taught me that it's okay to cry and it's okay to tell a man that you love them. You know, it's like, you know, because back in the day in marketing, I didn't want no man touching me.
Tony did not eat hot dogs. He would beat your ass. He had Tony went through a streak where I think he really was like a little dark. It was
well,
period.
I have depression. I have clinical depression, and I try. I don't want to hide behind it or anything, but I take medication, and I started taking medication when Mark and I started working together. So they were adjusting my medication, and one day, you know, we were on the air, and there was something wrong, and he just said, "Hey, man, go home." And I just stood there and looked at him, and he said, "Hey, dude," he said, I said, "What?" He said, "Did you hear me?" I'm like, "No, what'd you say?" He said, "Go home." He said, go. He goes, "Dude, you're just standing out staring in space, man." He said, "You need to go home." He goes, "You need to call your doctor because your medication is too much." He goes, you have zoned out, man." He says, "Go home." So I went home and called my doctor, and they changed my medication, and, you know, it was all good. But yeah, I started taking medication when we started working together, and he had more empathy for my situation, and we didn't even know each other that well when I first started on medication. But he had enough empathy for me that showed me that this dude he's real. He's as real as it gets. And
so it's not an act when it's not an act when he does that.
No. We became best friends, and later we were like brothers, you know. And I know that if I don't talk to him for a while, that I can call him or he can call me, and we can pick up right where we left off. You know, and you know, and he's helped me in some situations, and I've helped him in some situations, and, you know, he's called me for advice and, you know, things like that, and he knows stuff about me that not even my wife knows. You know,
well, let's not say that on the podcast.
because I trust him. I trust him. So the only who actually knows is him and Allison, because I know he told Allison. So
can I ask you guys a tough question?
Yeah, man.
Okay, because, you know, both of you guys are radio vets. You know, I'm in the middle of doing my, you know, I teach broadcast journalism to high school and college students, and I've been having I had two radio people come and have a real discussion with me and my students or whatever. And I want to ask you guys this one question. I would love to know your guys' thoughts on PPM. And do you think it was a design? Were there any pluses? Was there any minuses? I would love to know, if from both of you guys, what is your honest assessment on the whole PPM thing when it came and the role that it's played in Black radio?
I think that PPM hasn't been that great for radio in general. I think because, you know, I could have a meter, and if I go to AutoZone or wherever, and I go to Best Buy and I'm looking at car stereos, they got the radio on, and whatever radio is on, this meter on my hip is going to pick up. I'm not even listening to that radio station, but they're going to get credit for it because the meter picked it up. And they call that phantom listening. And it's like, you know, so that can happen. I could be in line at AutoZone trying to, you know, pay for my whatever I bought, and they got a country station playing in the background, and the meter's going to pick it up, and it's going to show that, you know, there was some listening there. But I didn't listen to that. I don't even listen to country music. I heard it, but I wasn't listening, if you know what I'm saying. So I think that there's a lot of flaws in that. Is it better than the diary system? You know, as someone who spent a career in black radio, you know, black radio we used to be legendary for our time spent listening and all stuff like that, right?
Yes, yes.
We found out that they ain't listening like we thought they were, right? They listen like everybody else listens. So, you know, there's some pluses and minuses, but I would say overall, not so much.
Yeah. So, so we just lost Steve Smith, programmer, white programmer, who I guess Tony. In some ways, I guess he almost, I guess he didn't create Churban, but I guess the urban influence. Basically labeling a hip hop station a Churban or that box, he kind of like could get credit for, wouldn't you say, Tony? As far as Hot 97, I guess in New York is the poster child for, hey, it's a hip hop station, but it's labeled something different. So the advertisers don't look at it as black station; they look at it as white station. So I think knowing what I know now, knowing what we know now, it's a business thing. I think the reality was urban stations. And predominantly in big cities, urban stations dominate, and I think they created the PPM, everything else, just to take the money away from the urban market because, like Tony said, we use radio different. Radio was our everything, you know, from our personalities to the news. Everybody turned to radio to see what is going on. They turned to the personalities to see what the hottest music is. What's Tony Scott talking about? What's the breakfast? You know, it was in these cities. The jocks were like, we were low. we were super local superstars. You know, local superstars. Everybody knew our names. Businesses because of that. That's why Donnie Simpson was the highest paid individual jock in the market. Why? Because of the advertising. The car dealerships and the advertisers, they want Donnie Simpson, you know, and knowing what I know, and I think Tony, you know, we're like living proof, like Tony's point earlier, all these morning talents, all this talent. If I said to Tony Scott, why are you still in St. Louis? Well, you're still in St. Louis because the rules are different for black talent or for talent who works in black radio than it is for white. If Tony was a white guy, he could have gone anywhere he wanted to go, even now. But urban radio stations, you know, they didn't hire, you know, other stations didn't hire us, and people would pull out their ass, somebody, JoJo, man, it's just, no, they didn't. I mean, I think about it, Tony, if we were comedians instead of DJs, we would have been much more successful financially because we wouldn't be dependent on having a platform to be on, you know, right. And I think our generation, we got hit hard because we were next. We were the next Howard Sterns. We were the next Tom Jones. We were the next blah, blah, blah. And then all the stuff came in and radio changed. And, you know, the saddest thing about it is even now, Tony, you know who suffered in addition to the jocks, the community suffered. The community never asked for all that. The community wanted what they wanted. That's why the death of Bobby OJ in Memphis and DIA was a prime example. They played blues, they played gospel, they were they're in the top 3 this whole time, and they were the same station that they were, you know, 50 years ago. Why?
On AM radio. On AM radio.
On AM radio, because these consultants like Steve Smith would go to an urban in a St. Louis and say, oh, you don't want to play blues. You know, and as me and Tony know, if you dropped a blues record or a gospel record, the phones are going to light up because they're like, oh, damn, they're playing blues, you know, and so even black folks, we're complicit because we didn't, you know, so St. Louis is interesting because we did have those legendary jocks like Jockenstein and Jim Gates and guys who, you know, Roy C. and people like that were coming to town killing at little places out in the country all those years. And they didn't have any radio airplay. So you're telling me those hundreds of people to go see them out in the country would not listen to them if you played it on a Saturday and had a blues show or had a gospel show? You know what I mean? So I know it's a long ass answer, Bootsy, but yeah, all that stuff was the death of urban radio. And sadly, a lot of radio, you know, a lot of black-owned companies, they gave it to them. They handed it off to the consultants as opposed to believing in the community and believing in the jocks.
Yeah,
and all these thoughts are mine and not that of Tony Scott, by the way.
No, I love it. I love it. What I guess my other question would be, at this point in 2022, what role do you think podcasting has in for the urban listener in general?
what do you think about podcasting? And then also, do you think there'll ever be a time where XM will outdo terrestrial radio?
No, I don't think satellite radio will outdo terrestrial radio, because terrestrial radio is free.
Yeah.
Right.
I think XM had his shot.
Yeah, I think podcasting is still a very new frontier, and I think there are a lot of people who, when you wanted to have a platform like that, you had to be on the radio, and now it's not that way anymore. Now you have things like this, and you have podcasting and things like that, and I think that changed the game a lot. And there's been a handful of podcasters that have been hired as radio talent, because they're executing a very good show. I think the bar is set a little lower in the podcast world, as far as professionalism, in compared to broadcast radio, where broadcast, to some degree, you have to have there are staples that you have some boxes you have to check off, every break. You have to identify the radio station. Well, on a podcast, you ain't got to do that. The only thing a podcast has to have is great audio, right? And video, because I coach some people with that. 50% of a great video like this is the audio. The audio, right? People will put up with a grainy picture and stuff like that, but they will not put up with bad audio. They just ain't here for it. They just, and they, and the way things are now, you could do this show, and if you got one of these roadcasters, and you get a burner phone, you give out that number, and you can pair it Bluetooth through the roadcaster, and you can take phone calls and do a show. And it's like,
right.
And the only thing you can't do is play copyrighted music, otherwise they'll take you down, right?
Right.
But as soon as they figure that out, that's going to be another thing too, and it's gonna hurt radio, I think. But radio.
But Tony, that's a very interesting point that you're making, because I have this theory as well. To me, I really think that with radio, urban radio, just radio in general, I'm fascinated on how now it's all these restrictions on YouTube for music. At first I was thinking with podcasting and that it was very, especially when COVID came and the DJ, I forgot his name, D Nice was, streaming, DJing online, and it became really big. I was fascinated when they started censoring music online, and I thought that must be an attack on podcasting, on freedom in general, because I was thinking, okay, well, if I can play music and podcast, I could just do my own show in general. And that I was really fascinated on the fact that there's so much censorship with YouTube now and videos just in general. That is very fascinating. Like, two things are fascinating to me. The first thing fascinating is the fact that they can break down a penny 12 times for streaming. Like, I would love to know who was in the room and say, you know what? Let's break the penny down 12 times. So 12 times, and did you get one cent? That was one thing. The other thing was how all of a sudden they just started pulling everybody's music off the social media sites. At first it was, because what artists would not want their stuff promoted? It just seemed like it's more censorship more than ever. And it seems like it is to narrow the opportunities for podcasts and all that. I would love to know your perspective on that. The 12 cent on the penny, and then the censorship of YouTube and music videos.
Well, the 12 cent on a penny is ridiculous. I mean,
that's crazy, bro.
It should be higher, but it's not. It'll change, but by the time it gets to somewhere that's satisfactory, the bar would have been moved, and it needs to be, it could have been here. Now it's over. Now it needs to be over here.
Right.
And so the thing about censorship with music on social media platforms, a lot of musicians don't have a problem with it, but they don't own their music. Some do, some don't, right? Record companies are the ones who get the music taken down. But these days, I think in 2022, you have these algorithms that search out this copyrighted music. And when they find it, they go, aha, you don't have permission to use this music for anything. And I understand that, right? Because if you have a YouTube channel and it's monetized, and you'll get paid based on views. And I used to be a YouTube partner, so I used to make a little bit of money doing that. If you're using the instrumental to an Usher song, and you're making money, how come Usher's not making money? Because that's his song, and you're using his song, and he's got a copyright on it. Do you have permission to use his song? No, you don't have permission to use his song. And that's what record companies are doing. That's what they say they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You can make a case that that's a bunch of crap, but essentially that's what they're going with, and it's working for them. So these algorithms, because I've talked to people, I coach people, and they say, well, I never got my music taken down. I said, that's because they haven't caught up with you yet. I said, but they will eventually. And then when they do, they're going to take it down. I've known people who said their Facebook Live was taken down in the middle of what they were doing because they were playing this music in the background and stuff like that garnered them a strike. So, you have to, and then some people will say, you post, I do not own the rights to this music. That does absolutely nothing. I talked to an entertainment lawyer one time about that, and he says, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. That does not protect you. That doesn't do anything for you. He says, when I look at it, he goes, I just laugh because I don't know who put that out there like that, but it absolutely does not work. That doesn't do anything other than you typing and using the energy to put that up there. But you admit that I not own the rights to this music means absolutely nothing. So there's that.
Wow.
So Tony Scott, as we wrap things up, my friend,
Mm-hmm.
What's the you're doing your voice. You're a professional voice guy now. You're still a professional radio guy. You also dabble in video. But what is your passion as we get into the third and fourth quarter of our existence?
Well, right now my passion is voiceover because radio. I mean, I don't know everything about radio, but I know a lot. And I'm running out of things to talk about because I've talked about so many things, right? I've talked about my family. I've talked about pop culture. I've talked about politics, but voiceover is new to me. Even though I've been doing it for a few years, it's still new to me and I'm learning so much about it. And so I have a thirst for knowledge, and there's more for me to learn about voiceover than there really is about being an on-air personality. Do I know anything about radio sales? No, but that was my expertise. My expertise was on air. And, I find it amusing because we have a piece of imaging that plays between songs that say, Tony Scott is on the radio. Then it says the icon is back. And that just makes me laugh because icon. What the hell are you talking about, right? Because I could call my 82-year-old mother right now and she'd answer the phone. I go, Ma, she'd go, ugly boy. Called me ugly boy since I was 12 years old, but it's a term of endearment. She's the only person who can call me that, but it doesn't bother me. But thinking about that helps keep me grounded because I know that I'm ugly boy, and it doesn't. I'm just a kid from Galveston who got lucky that I was blessed with this career, and I was able to use this platform in many different ways of radio. I still enjoy it. I still have fun with it, but it's not the same like it was a long time ago when before it got deregulated, when it was competitive, and I remember Mark and I working together one time in this competing radio station. They were giving away free breakfast, and Mark went and he parked like not next to them, but fairly close to them. And he called and put it on the air. And he's got cash. He's giving away cash. and the person who was calling in for the other radio station, they said, don't sell out your values for a little bit of money. And it's like, we won. We won that day. we won because we got her to react to us, right? So yeah, I never forgot that. But that was
That's funny.
Yeah, that was a good time. But I love my career. I love the voiceover. I love the broadcasting, and hope to do this. I don't know how much. I'm not gonna lie. I'm getting tired because I'm not the young man I used to be. When I could go for a long period of time, I do get tired and not being in the best shape and some health issues here and there. And I'm dealing with 3 hernias right now that I went to get them looked at, and they're like, well, you have this other issue. So let's look at that first, and then we'll come back to the hernia. So I went and got the other issue, and they said, no, you're fine. So now we're in the process of scheduling a date so I can get these hernias taken care of, so that I can get some of the weight off of me, because I'm not able to exercise. I can't walk for long periods of time because it's very painful. And so I have two, I don't know if I'm saying inguinal hernias.
Oh Lord.
And I have one umbilical hernia. I have three. But
they say they happen in 3, Tony.
That's what they say. What they say. Well, as soon as I'm able to take care of that and recover, hopefully I can start walking and, things like that, and get this weight off, because, Mark, and by the way, Mark looks incredible. I've known Mark forever, and Mark has never looked as great as he looks now.
Oh, wow.
Well, damn it, man.
So my wife said she'd do them now if she could, but it's.
And with that, Tony Scott has struck again. Man, I love you, bruh.
Nice meeting you virtually.
Bootsy, thank you, man.
Amazing meeting you, man.
Tony, how do people follow you, and how do people book you for voiceover gigs? Let's go.
Tony Scott Media is my handle, like on Instagram and stuff like that. And if you want to reach out to me for some voice work, you can hit me at Tony@TonyScottMedia.com. And
Tony,
yeah,
Tony, I know a station that's looking for a voiceover guy. They looking to hire one. I will be calling you soon.
I'll send the information. I'll send Bootsy's information to you, Tony. Love you, bruh. Thanks so much for this. All you radio nerds, I hope you enjoyed it. I told you we going in. Tony Scott, the Tony Scott, and the Bootsy Vegas. Okay,
yes,
until we meet again, sayonara.